We are starting the recording, but I'm not going to start the webinar until the droves and droves of people get here, and I'm sure they will be here. Matthew, you should be happy that I took your advice with the PowerPoint. Uh, please let me know, both of you, if you would, if you can see that. Yay, I can. Wonderful. It has met with the Matthew G. Ward. That's the Phantom of the Opera, Lon Chaney. I'm discovering today that I do not share a common culture with most people I've encountered, and that scares me. I think Nikki and Susan are the special guest haunts, but they've gone off to haunt from their offices. And some entity must have gotten them because they still haven't logged in. Do either of you want a microphone? No. Okay. Well, it's just me then. Well, I will go ahead and get started. It's 1:29. I don't think anyone else is coming, but welcome to a special Halloween edition of Teacher Tip Thursday. I'm your host, Mike Hill, so join me if you dare for What's So Scary About Research. Our assumptions about research for any course that you are teaching will be far different from your students. I think that's something that's common knowledge, but today's topic is really concerned with how to get over some of the hurdles and make it into an actual learning experience, one that's meaningful for everyone involved. And of course, we do have different perspectives. I put faculty expectations or perspectives on the goals and aims of the research component, and then how the students see it. For faculty, regardless of discipline, it is all about the ability to locate and identify appropriate academic sources, how to read critically and analyze the documents, how to synthesize the research to build a stronger argument, and say, hey, I'm bringing in expert testimony to support my case, or I'm bringing in the opposing viewpoint in order to make a very broad, fair argument and show why my perspective is different but valid from what other authorities might say. From the student's perspective, as soon as we say academic sources, they realize I can't just use Google or Bing. Um, Robert Benson has mentioned before in one of his blogs calling students doing research papers these magpies who are just trying to go out and, I think he termed it quotation mongering. They're looking at the resources, trying to find only those key little quotations that they can plug into a paper. They're not really engaged in critical reading. And of course, also, students think if you have to have 5 to 7 sources, or even fewer than that, that, oh, I really have to privilege the research over my own voice. I have to find the experts and defer to them at all costs. And if you have been on the instructor side of the classroom, you realize when the students have that perspective on research, you get something that's cobbled together, block quotations, very little actual student engagement, very little student content other than transitions between the quotations. Or, in worst case scenario, you end up with something that is cut and pasted. And I've put up Edvard Munch's The Scream because even if we have different perspectives, typically we have identical outcomes. You get this stack of papers in, either electronically or hard copy, and you may well fall into the depths of despair and want to plunge off a bridge. And the students just see this as an obstacle to navigate, something that's overwhelming and terrifying to them, and it really shouldn't be. And what I wanted to focus on was not just establishing that this is frightening, but how we can face our/their fears and therefore conquer them. I want to advocate starting early in the semester. Conventional wisdom is you build students' writing skills up over time. You give them several short essays, maybe start them out with narrative, move to comparison contrast or classification. Then, at the very end, you trot out the major research assignment. I understand the argument for that we do want our students for an assignment that will count a substantial portion of their grade to have developed their writing skills, had a lot of practice. But if we put it off until the very end, they have lots of other projects and finals due. They're tired by that point in the semester. And if things do go horribly wrong, there is no time to correct that, no time to repair that. So definitely start early. Definitely make the assignment or multiple assignments engaging, because I would not want to just have my students writing about things that are interesting to me, because I understand they may well not have an investment in that topic. Finally, make the assignments manageable for everyone. I understand that we are dealing with competencies set by TBR. We're dealing with some Gen Ed competencies, especially the English 1010 rubric, which specifies a specific number of sources. But I really think in terms of making the assignments manageable, not an overwhelming onslaught of research. Privilege the student's voice over the research. Teach them how to do the research, think about it, read carefully, synthesize it, but make sure that we always privilege their voices. And finally, make it into something collaborative, a chance for us as faculty to learn from our students. And the example which I did choose for the special Halloween edition is based on Lorraine Warren's visit to campus fairly recently, October 1st. And I, on this slide, did highlight and put in bold the date, October 1st, just a month into the semester. But that provided a talking point for thinking about research and making it into something ongoing. And the question did come up, as one would expect, is the Ouija board evil? Is it a tool of Satan? And Lorraine did say that it was an inert object, but it could open a doorway or a portal and potentially unleash demonic entities. My students, needless to say, were intrigued. Either that's hokum because you can buy these at Toys R Us and it's cardboard and plastic, or skepticism. I don't really think that that's the case, but I'm not entirely sure. I wouldn't touch one with a 10-foot pole. But one student did take on the project, and it's still ongoing, but he's thinking about the history of the Ouija board. And from there, one path leads to another, and came up with an argument about spiritualism in America. And I thought this is an opportunity for making the research relevant to the student. Student was curious about this, heard something on campus, prompted his curiosity, and said, I want to find out more and I want to develop this into an argument. So even if I have very little interest in the subject matter, it's an opportunity for me to say, hey, go for it. Think about what really fascinates you. And he's done a very good job with starting out simply with Google and looking at Ouija board as a broad subject term. And this took him to the Smithsonian. So I don't rule out just going to the internet. I always, as you've heard me say before, privilege the library resources. But here we've got Smithsonian Magazine, which I believe is also in our library collection, but the strange and mysterious history of the Ouija board. And let me see if I can pull that over here. Matthew, Kathy, Susan, can you see this picture of Robert Murch and his website? Okay, I see a new window. Is there anything, Kathy, is there anything in that window? Can you see it now? Okay, I see the pic and the text. Great. Okay, so I just wanted to point out that from the Smithsonian article, which had several links embedded in it, the student followed this to find out about Robert Murch, who is, according to his own website, the world's foremost collector, historian, and expert on Ouija boards, for what that's worth. Then it also led him to an article about the Fox sisters and the rap on spiritualism. Had anyone heard of the Fox sisters? Matthew has not. Susan has not. Kathy Rhodes has not. The Fox sisters. Can everyone see the article titled Past Imperfect? Matthew can. Kathy says enlighten us. I'm trying. Yes. And I see the article with 3 ladies. Great. These are the Fox sisters who started a craze in the 19th century by claiming that they were communicating with spirits via raps on the walls and the furniture. Very similar to how we might communicate with a Ouija board and ask questions and hope that it will respond. In fact, the article that started the student down this approach, and for some reason that is not pulling up, we're back to Robert Murch. I think it's probably the way I formatted the link, but made the argument that spiritualism was a 19th century craze, that communicating with the dead was not actually viewed as something incompatible with Christianity, and you might go to church on Sunday and have had a seance the night before. It also discusses the cultural context of spiritualism, that we're thinking in terms of average lifespan being less than 50, women dying in childbirth, various outbreaks of diseases, the Civil War, and lots of men dying at a very young age. That the families were devastated and people were wanting desperately to communicate. And so that's the cultural huge sensation. Also, in the Ouija board article from Smithsonian, it mentions Norman Rockwell. That Norman Rockwell actually depicted, get this, depicted a couple playing with a Ouija board on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post, which then finally sent my student to Academic OneFile and this article from Saturday Evening Post, which explains the Norman Rockwell connection. Now, my student is absolutely fascinated because here is something that we typically associate either as a harmless child's toy or as something horribly dangerous. And he was discovering through looking at all these different articles and following what I would call the maze or the trail of breadcrumbs and looking at websites and thinking, okay, how reliable, for instance, is the robertmurch.com personal website, even though it's referenced in Smithsonian. The Smithsonian articles look solid and reliable and credible, but can I back them up with something from the library databases, something more academic? And was really enjoying the process, something that had been frightening before or daunting or just dull because the student did not get to pick a topic, did not get to really work through research in stages and think about each article in turn and do a summary, do some sort of critical response, even if it's something as simple as what did I learn from this article? What raised my curiosity more? What did I find convincing? What did I not find convincing? Along the way, by interacting with all of these, he is steadily building a good argument. And I wanted to close with this actual image from the Saturday Evening Post, May 1st, 1920. And because the semester is not over yet, this project has been being turned in stages informally, so there's lots of interaction. It's not the finished product yet. I can't really say with any certainty, yes, this is a done deal, but I can imagine and predict and foretell that a rosy future is in store, that he'll probably get a fairly good grade, we'll look at research differently, and we'll produce an essay that's probably not going to cause me to scream. It will be one that I would actually enjoy reading. So this has been an enjoyable few minutes for you. Any questions? Any comments? Would you like to learn more about the Ouija board, the Fox Sisters? Thanks, Mike. Research is scary. No, it's not. People only think that it is. And we can always learn something ourselves, because if we make this into something collaborative, and until we started looking at this together, I had never known that about Norman Rockwell, certainly. And today, talking to colleagues, excuse me, talking to colleagues, I realized something that I considered a cornerstone of cultural literacy is absolutely unknown in these parts. Matthew, I already know the answer from Susan and Kathy. Are you familiar with the choking Doberman? Never heard of it. Well, next time on Teacher Tip Thursday, when I conduct one, we're going to do one on urban legends. I'm sure I can give it an academic slant. So, be ready, be prepared. Watch out for the ghouls and the goblins. And I will see you next time. Goodbye.